NATO has started its biggest European military exercises for decades. Operation Steadfast Defender will include more than 3 months of naval, air and ground manoeuvres across much of the continent. The military alliance's largest European operation since the Cold War will deploy 90,000 personnel from all 31 member countries, plus Sweden. It's designed to test the alliance's readiness on its eastern border. Here's a look at what's in store and how Russia is reacting to NATO's show of force.
Planes, warships, tanks. It's been 3 years since the last Operation Steadfast Defender. This year's version is happening on a grand scale, meant to demonstrate how fast forces can move from North America to Europe and activate defenses there against a near-peer enemy. NATO has 31 members participating, plus Sweden, which is in talks to join the alliance. More than 90,000 soldiers, sailors, and air personnel will take part, and more than 50 naval vessels and 80 aircraft are involved, as well as more than 1,000 combat vehicles. It's a significant step up from the last Steadfast Defender exercises in 2021. Those involved about 10% of the personnel taking part this time around. NATO says that's due to changing realities on the ground in Europe, especially following Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 and the ongoing war there.
The security situation in Europe has dramatically changed over the last couple of years. We have to exercise at a larger scale and with more complexity than we were used to doing in the era when we were mostly focused on overseas operations. So I think what you're seeing this year in 2024 is the new normal.
That new normal does not please Russia, which sees NATO as a hostile alliance. Russia considers major NATO exercises as a threat to its security. In our understanding, the alliance was conceived, formed, configured, and managed by the United States as an instrument of confrontation. Steadfast Defender will shift from naval readiness in southern Europe to ground-based exercises in the alliance's northern and eastern flanks over the coming months. It's set to wrap up at the end of May.
So are these large-scale manoeuvres about operational effectiveness or a show of strength for Russia? I put that to Rafael Loss. He's a policy fellow at the European Council on Foreign Relations.
Most certainly is about both exercising NATO's ability to reinforce the eastern flank of the alliance, but also to demonstrate to Russia that it is capable of deploying large numbers of forces. Now, we're not quite at the scale of some of the Cold War exercises. Reporter, the return of forces to Germany, to West Germany in the late 1980s had upwards of 100,000 troops from North America coming to West Germany. Now we're looking at roughly 90,000 troops moving from the West to Europe and within Europe from West to East.
And presumably it's safe to assume that Russia will be watching these exercises very, very carefully.
I mean, that's the whole point to some extent. You want to demonstrate as an alliance your ability to reinforce your most vulnerable allies and to demonstrate that you are able to do so effectively in a timely fashion. NATO is doing this for the first time since 2021, since Russia launched its full-scale invasion. All eyes are on NATO's ability to reinforce those most vulnerable allies. And so bringing together the allies, the capabilities that they put to the table in such a reinforcement exercise is something that Russia most certainly is looking at.
Meanwhile, we have US presidential hopeful Donald Trump bringing up the issue of NATO contributions again, accusing some countries of not paying what he calls their fair share. What's the truth of his claims?
European NATO leaders are certainly very nervous about Donald Trump's latest remarks, almost encouraging adversaries such as Russia to attack delinquent allies that don't pay up, in Donald Trump's words. This is something that the alliance is not built around. It's solidarity, it's collective defense and security. And there is a common commitment to boost defense spending. We've seen this since 2014 when Russia first invaded the Donbass and annexed Crimea, NATO defense spending is going up. Now, roughly 2/3 of allies in Europe and North America are at the 2% mark. But that certainly means that Europeans, regardless of whether Donald Trump returns to the White House, need to do more in order to strengthen the European pillar within NATO.
Right. Let's talk about that for a moment, because there has been in the past talk of a European army with the prospect of a second Trump presidency, and the likes of Turkey and Hungary also throwing various bits of uncertainty into the works. How do you anticipate let's say, the next 5 years for the NATO alliance?
I think European NATO allies do share an interest in maintaining most parts of the alliance if the United States, under a second Trump presidency, decides to formally withdraw. Now, there is a hurdle to a U.S. withdrawal. Congress, the U.S. Senate recently put up an effort to require Senate approval for any such withdrawal, but even undermining by Trump via tweet, for example, of the political support by the US towards the alliance could undermine the credibility of US security guarantees and therefore the unity of NATO as an alliance. Europeans look at this and ask themselves what they can do. I think a lot is on the table already in terms of NATO defense capability planning. NATO allies know very clearly what kinds of capabilities the United States is contributing to the alliance and what kinds of capabilities would be lacking, and therefore Europeans would have to bring to the table.
Thanks for joining us and talking us through that. Rafael Loss from the European Council on Foreign Relations.